Hi. Today we're talking about how to transform the simple into the sacred. And today we're going to acknowledge how women are forces of nature and how we're a part of something far bigger and far greater than ourselves. If this is our first time meeting, my name is Maria Chowdhury. I'm a licensed midwife and an herbalist, and I'm the owner of Brew Botanicals. And we make nourishing herbal remedies, teas, tinctures, baths for menstruation, for pregnancy, for birth, postpartum, breastfeeding, and for children's health. And so it's through those experiences of being a midwife and herbalist that I'm coming to you today to share my perspectives and share my experiences today. And I'm so glad you're here. And I'm really glad to be here because just a little while ago I was all like frumping, and now I'm all happy because we're doing this and we're here together. And so if you're on here, go ahead and give us a smile, give us a heart, and tell us where you're listening from. And while you're doing that, I want to tell you a couple things. So I'm in front of the camera, and then Heaven is behind the camera. And so you're going to hear her voice probably, and you're not going to see her. And so she's going to tell me about all the comments and all the questions, and she's going to let me know when there is something, because I'm not going to see it. And I really want you to ask, and I really want you to participate and be a part of this. I want us to be in this together. So I might not see your question right away. I also just pushed record on that other device because we're recording this for Facebook Live, but we're also recording this for our podcast. And you can hear our podcast. It's called Brew Botanicals, and it's on SoundCloud. And so that's where you can find us. And today, we're wrapping up this series. We did a series, a Lady in Waiting series, and that whole series is coming to an end, and we're wrapping it up. So I want to touch some highlights about what I thought were the important take-homes from that series. And I also want to let you know that I have a gift for you. And the gift is a Lady in Waiting tea tin, and we are... In October, we're going to let the tea tin go. And so this is your last chance to be getting the tea tin. So if you want it, it's super easy. All you have to do is, in the comments, just say, hey, I want a tea tin. And then after the show, Heaven will go ahead and private message you to get your email address. And so then she can just send you an invoice for the shipping. It's just a small shipping fee. And then you'll get the tea tin and the hat. So I just wanted to let you know right off the bat. And there was one other thing I wanted to let you know of is next week we're going to continue with these lives, and we are going to unveil and reveal something I've been working on for a really long time and I'm really excited about. And next week is going to be the first time we talk about it in public and first time we show it. So I hope you join me for that. Yeah. So, Heaven, is there anybody there I should know about and say hi to?
We have 3 people watching.
Hey, well, hello, 3 people. I'm glad you're here. Have a sip. Okay, let's dive in and let's get started right away because we're going to just move through this. So, during this whole series, this Lady in Waiting series, we touched on a couple things. We touched on perspective. We touched on connection, we touched on relationships, we touched on cycles, our feminine cycles and natural cycles. We touched on herbs, we touched on nourishing herbs, we touched a lot of things, right? And so I want to kind of have my golden thread and string it all together for you today. Okay, so I want to start right now with perspective. And I just posted on our page this really cool video. It's a short video all about perspective. And what it shows is when you're looking at this art and you see one thing very clear. And then when you just shift a little bit, this whole other thing opens up. And so I want to start with perspective because what we perceive and how we are perceived by others really influences our experiences, really influences our actions, and then so in turn it also influences our results, right? And so really this is just a brief, almost a question to you. of like, what is your perspective, your current perspective in your life? Like, I'm not sure who's listening right now, so somebody might be pregnant. And so if you're pregnant, what's your perspective on your pregnancy? What is your perspective on your menstruation? What is your perspective on your job? What is your perspective in your relationships? Is it a perspective that comes from shame or fear or concern or confusion? Or is it a perspective from being open and curious, a perspective of being a part of nature, that it's not gross, but it's like fascinating? So those little tiny seemingly changes in words radically change the outcomes of a birth. If you want an empowered birth but have a perspective of fear and shame, well then probably not. That honestly, I'm speaking to you from my heart. To have an empowering birth, you have to shift the perspective that you're worthy of having an empowering birth, and that you're capable, and that you're going to do the right things and take really good care of yourself, and pick the care provider to put you in the right position so you can have the birth you want. So it starts from your perspective, and that perspective then in turn changes the choices and the decisions you make to get you to your goal. Right? So if your perspective of your monthly cycle is this one of pain and gross and dirty, then it's going to be really hard to enjoy it. You probably will have cramps for a really long time, and then guess what? Menopause might be terrible too. So finding little ways to, and I'm not saying it's the cure-all, but definitely most of the time in life, they've written so many books about this. The situation doesn't change, the facts don't change, but a person's perspective of the situation and appreciation of the situation, they have radically different experiences. So I'm putting that forth for you, and then in our meditation, when we come back at the end, we'll come back and we'll ask our wisdom body about our perspective. And then we also talked about connections and relationships and cycles. And so I want to talk a little bit about connections and relationships real quick. Just a reminder, last week we talked about this specifically when I had Peppermint here, and I was talking about Peppermint as one of my best friends, right? And I wanted to explain, what do I mean by best friend? And from an herbalist perspective, I really want to cultivate and maybe change the language, because I do this all the time. I still am trapped in this language, right? And I use the word use, and I don't really want to use the word use, and I don't really want to use the word take, because what I hear people say, when I hear people talk about herbs, and they hear, oh, peppermint, what do you use that for? Why would I take it? What is it good for? Why would I use it? And so for whatever reason, that just kind of hurts my heart, because really what I want to hear is, oh, peppermint, how will I heal? How will peppermint help me heal? How will peppermint taste? How will I enjoy peppermint? And so what I'm really trying to say is our relationships are reciprocity, right? It's a give and a take. It's a give and a receive. And so if we're coming always from the perspective of taking and using, that perspective is just something in our culture that I feel that I'd like to transform instead to a culture that participates, one that belongs, one that connects, one that appreciates. And so I'm encouraging you to think of these herbs as allies and as support and almost honestly as friends, so that you cultivate a friendship, and then that friendship will lead to a deeper sense of well-being and a deeper sense of healing. I feel like I should take a sip. We also talked a lot about cycles and our connection to our bodies and our connections to the cycles of nature. So I'm going to move this here. And speaking of perspective, Heaven just informed me right when we started to do this. I was practicing for a minute, and I was moving my arms because I'm going to make my arms into a big circle. And from my perspective, I'm making my arms into a circle, and I'm going clockwise, right? But when you see me, you're seeing me go counterclockwise. So which one is right? Which one is truth? We're both right. It's just that we have the camera turned around so you can read the word apothecary. and you can read the word lady in waiting. So I am standing here and very aware that I am going the direction of clockwise, and you're seeing it opposite. And that's okay, but we're going to roll with it. Okay, so what I want to illustrate is this life cycle, right? Here we are, we're women. So here we are, we're women and we're born. My hand is on the bottom of the circle. We're born, we start to grow and mature. We have our first cycle, our menarche, and we menstruate, and then we become pregnant, and then we give birth, and then we start to menstruate again, and then we go through perimenopause into menopause. So I'm going to do that again. So we're born, we mature, we come to our first menstruation, we're cycling, we're menstruating, we give birth. A lot happens up here. We get pregnant, we give birth, we breastfeed. A lot happens. This breastfeeding, postpartum, back to menstruation again, down to perimenopause, down to menopause. So that's a big life cycle that women go through, fertility and life cycle. Right? And so then what else? What's another cycle that we go through? Another cycle would be, well, in pregnancy, we would conceive, we would grow the baby, start to feel the baby move, really start to show, really expand our bodies, and a lot happens here again. We give birth, and then we start to breastfeed, and we're going through our postpartum experience. We start to cycle again, and then we come down and we conceive again. So we conceive, we go through our early pregnancy, we start to show, our belly gets big, we're feeling the baby move, we give birth, a lot happens, we breastfeed, we're going through our postpartum, we menstruate, and then we conceive again. Oh, and then we have a menstrual cycle, and this is mainly, I'm going to talk about it from an emotional perspective. So we're down on the bottom of the circle, and we're menstruating, and we wanted to be alone. We kind of needed to go inward to our inward self. And then our cycle ends, and so we start to come out of that, and we're like excited and have lots of great ideas and feel really fresh and alive and beautiful. And now we're starting to ovulate, and so we feel like we want to touch and be touched and really just put ourselves out there in this big, full way. And then we start to transition to feeling like, ooh, was that a good idea? Ooh, should I keep doing that? I'm not sure. Why are you always touching me? Can you go away? I really need to be alone. And then you start to cycle again. And then, oh, beautiful ideas. Oh, I'm out there. Yes, I'll go to that party. Yes, I'll do that event. Yes, I'll put myself out there. Yes. Oh, I don't know. I'm unsure. I don't know. I'm sensitive. Okay, go away. There we go. That's a menstrual cycle. And then, here's another cycle. Here's a more like a nature cycle. This is the lunar cycle. So we're going to start in the new moon. The new moon, it's dark. The new moon starts to wax and grow and get bigger and brighter and fuller. Now at the full moon, it's at the peak. This is when we're ovulating, we're full and peak, and the moon is full and bright, and everything is alive and big. And then it starts to slowly fade, become darker, more secluded, darker, and go away into the new moon. Full, new, full, dark. What's another one? Oh, the seasons. This is important. We're about to be in the equinox in a few days. It's the equinox. So we're going to start in the winter on the bottom. The winter goes to the spring, goes to the summer, goes to the fall, back to the winter, the spring, summer, fall, winter. And so we right now are right here. We're about to transition into the equinox. And so it's a perfect time to take inventory. It's time to clean out your garden, clean out your closet, clean out your thoughts, restock your pantry, time to get some different clothes. It's time to really think about and take stock in who you are, what you're doing, where you're going, and what you're taking with you, because you're about to go inward and be still and darker and more sensitive and more vulnerable. All this stuff, this is a part of nature, that vulnerable place. And then we'll come back out. Okay? And so I'm just trying to illustrate that women are forces of nature, and we're never constant. Even on this equinox, when it's all equal, it's only equal and still for moments, right? Then the earth shifts and the moon shifts and the sun shifts and the cosmos shift, and then there's going to be more light and more dark. And so balance doesn't equal stillness, and it certainly doesn't equal perfect. So balance, an example of balance, I wasn't even going to talk about this, but balance. There's wildfires, and recently this was a really clear thing in California. There's massive wildfires, right? It didn't rain at all. But in Arkansas and in central United States, it rained for weeks. Almost the whole time there was a fire in California, it was raining in central United States. And so it wasn't raining at the fire, but there was both fire and rain, two excessives in close proximity. So balance doesn't mean that it's happening at the same time. It means it's happening simultaneously, but not always in the same place. And it's definitely not perfect. That's a good transition. Let's have a sip, take a breath. And I want to talk to you about the next thread that we talked about in these talks were nourishing herbs. Because we also talked about this whole phenomenon called deep fatigue. Why are we so depleted? Why are we so tired? Why are we feeling depressed? Why are we just run down? And what are the causes of deep fatigue? And a big cause of deep fatigue is that we lack the awareness that we're connected to something greater, that we don't have enough vitamins and minerals. So I talked a lot about nourishing herbs. So I want you to imagine in front of me, I have this spectrum. So on this side over here, you see it as a clothesline, right? You can see the clothes on the clothesline. And now I'm going to turn this into a spectrum of herbs. So on this side over here, I have nourishing herbs. And then in the middle, I have medicinal herbs. And then now on this side over here, I have toxic herbs or poisonous herbs. So my work as a midwife and an herbalist that work with pregnant women, breastfeeding moms, young children, or teens going through their menstruation. I don't really deal with toxic herbs or poisonous herbs at all, because they're just not appropriate for my tribe, for my community. I'm not saying that there is not potent medicine there. I'm saying that that's not what I talk about or specialize in. And if you're going to use those herbs, see, there I go, I use the word use. If you're going to have those herbs in your body for some reason, you should really have a care provider and an herbalist that knows a lot about that. But I can talk about medicinal herbs and nourishing herbs. And we'll save the medicinal herbs for another conversation, but I'll tell you real quick. Medicinal herbs you would have in your life, you would like have echinacea or Oregon grapefruit. You would have that if you have an infection or you're having a problem that you need help solving. And then once that problem goes away, then you're gonna you're not gonna keep consuming those herbs, because medicinal herbs you have for a short amount of time, and that's it. And then you just stop taking them anymore. And then you have this nourishing herbs. So I'm going to bring myself over here, this huge nourishing herbs, and this is where we thrive. And then our whole conversation for this last month has been in this category of nourishment. And so nourishing herbs, I want you to think of them as food. So they are food. Yes, they're medicinal, but they're primarily as food. So they're high in vitamins and minerals. And we have red raspberry leaf, nettle, oat straw, and alfalfa are the primary nourishing herbs. And so I made a nourishing herbal infusion. I made one already, and then I'm going to show you how to make one. Because what's really important about nourishing herbs, which is really different than medicinal herbs, is essentially the quantity. So I don't know if you can see this, but you see this is a teaspoon, right? So when you have a standard tea bag and you're having a cup of tea, the standard size of a cup of tea is going to be a teaspoon of herbs, and then that you're going to have 1 to 3 cups a day, and it's going to taste wonderful and be great. And then you have a medicinal tea. And so a medicinal tea is you have a tablespoon of herbs, a tablespoon, heaping tablespoon of herbs if you're Maria. And that heaping tablespoon of herbs, you're going to have it in a cup of water 1 to 3 times a day. And that's considered a medicinal tea. But what we're having is we're having a nourishing herbal infusion. And so it's not a teaspoon, it's not a tablespoon, it's an ounce. It's an ounce of herbs. So I want to tell you about that. I'm going to make one for you. So I'm going to just go ahead and make that right now so you can see just how much an ounce of herb is and why I would have an ounce of herbs. So this, when you're learning nourishing herbal infusions, really it's recommended to learn 1 herb at a time. Like just have red raspberry leaf, drink that for a week. Then just drink nettles for a week. Then just drink alfalfa for a week. Then just drink oat straw. But I've already done that, and so I wanted to make this, and so this is a blend of all those. Red raspberry leaf, alfalfa, nettle, and oat straw. And I put a little peppermint in here. So, do you see how full that is? So, I actually put this on the scale and weighed out 1 ounce. But if you don't have a scale, you can safely say, putting your finger on the bottom, you can say 3 finger breaths up from on a quart jar, a wide mouth quart jar. That would be a safe estimation of the amount of herbs to put in the jar. You only make nourishing herbal infusions with nourishing herbs. You don't make this much, you don't put this much herb with medicinal herbs, certainly not with toxic herbs, right? You only, with medicinal herbs, you use a little bit. With nourishing herbs, you use a lot, because it's like saying, I've heard it explained to me, it's like carrot. I want to improve my vitamin A, right? So I'm going to take a carrot, and I'm going to grate it, and then I'm going to dehydrate it, and then I'm going to take a teaspoon of dried carrot and put it in some water, and then drink 3 cups of that a day. Am I going to realistically improve my vitamin A? No. Even if I put a tablespoon and did the same thing, I'm not going to. But if I talked about, we talked about iron, we talked about anemia in one of our talks, and if I really want to bring up my iron level, we talked about oral health and bone health and calcium. And if I really, we also talked about how calcium helps and magnesium also help with cramps and body pain. If I really want to improve my cramps, improve my body pain, improve my anemia, improve my swelling, improve my indigestion, improve my morning sickness, a teaspoon or a tablespoon isn't going to work. It needs to be sufficient amount. And so this is why we have an ounce of these nourishing herbs. So this water was really hot. It should still be. And so here's another little trick. You stick a spoon into the jar and you pour your water onto the spoon. It's rare, but every once in a while the jars break. Especially, like, I've had these jars for a really long time, and so they could potentially break. Actually, this happened just the other day. We were in there in heaven and I was like, oh my gosh, the jar busted. I think it was right before we were about to do a live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Real life experience here, girls. So now the spoon's super hot. Well, it's not super hot. That water sat there probably for 10 minutes, so it's a little cooler. I'm going to stir it up. And so I talked about the amount. You know, I said a teaspoon to 1 cup 3 times a day, or a tablespoon to 1 cup 3 times a day. So what I'm proposing now is 1 ounce to 1 quart of water, and you drink that quart every day. Now, if you are not able to drink that quart every day, then put the rest of it in the refrigerator and drink it the next day. But the truth is, it's going to go bad really fast. You have 2 days, 3 days max, and do not leave it sitting on the counter longer than overnight. So that's another important thing. So when you're making teas, like these types of teas with a teaspoon and a tablespoon, you're going to make those teas, and they are going to be, you can let them steep for about 15 minutes or 20 minutes or when the water cools down. However, a nourishing herbal infusion, the longer it steeps, the better. So you want it to steep at least 4 hours. And so, or overnight. So when I typically make these, I make them in the night, right before bed, like part of my bedtime routine. And then I leave it on the counter, and then the next day is when it's done, and then I drink that quart throughout the day. And so that's how I do that. But I'm going to go ahead and transfer it. So this one are same ingredients. So you see how this is kind of clear, and see how dark this is. And so these herbs have already, first it was 3 fingers, and now the water is in there, and so it's really swelling. And this is too hot for me to shake it up, but I'm going to just set this over here for now. Okay, so this is a little messy. Oh, you know what? I thought I had this all figured out. Fortunately, I'm in an apothecary, and we have to improvise. I have another jar. Yay! Okay. So here's another thing I want to talk about. I mentioned, how do we make the simple into the sacred, right? So a big part of that is intent, right? So a big part of that is my intention. Another part of that is my perspective. Another part of that is how I engage in the moment, right? So if I'm about to press this infusion out, I'm about to engage, right? So what I mean by that is I'm engaging all my senses. So when I use all my senses, that's called organoleptic. I'm using all 5 senses to learn something and know something and experience something. So right now I'm using my eyes to see. I can see this beautiful brown color, and now I can see this beautiful dark green, almost black color. And I saw the herbs in the bowl, they were really beautiful, and I can see the beauty of the plants, right? So I'm using my eyes. And then I'm also, right now, I'm feeling. I can feel the warmth of the jar. This has been actually steeping for 2 or 3 hours, and it still has some warmth in the jar. I can feel how my hands cup around it. I can also feel how the herbs will be. Once I drink it, I can feel the herbs in my body. So I have the sense of feeling and touch. I also, right here, pay attention. I feel like I'm going to make a mess. Nourishing herbal infusions are messy. Definitely messy. I hear them described as messy sexy. They're sexy because you're like super nourished and like healthy, and you're making your own herbal medicine and you feel really empowered by it. And it's messy because you got all this herb right here, and I'm about to like touch it and spill it. Okay. So I'm about to touch it, so I'm engaging my senses still, right? And so I'm going to put this in, and I'm going to press. This is important. This is an important part. Don't skip this part. So see how it is, and I'm pressing. See how much more fluid comes out? That's important. So the most nourishing part, the most nutritionally dense liquid is still in the herbs, the saturated herbs. So I need to get that out. Yeah, and this thing doesn't stay on here very well. Come on. Come here. So a little at a time, and you're going to press it out. Press it out. So the rest of the herb matter, you can just compost it. Or really, you can also just add more hot water and then have round 2. Okay, press it out. You can see that it's getting darker. So I'm having the sensation of the herbs on my fingers. I'm feeling the sensation of the water, right? So sense of touch is a primary one. So smell, I can sense of smell. I can smell this. It smells really green and earthy, and I really enjoy the smell. I think I smell a little bit of the peppermint. All right. What else? We have sense of smell, touch. We need to do hearing. I can hear as my hands are touching the herbs. I can hear the water being poured into the cup. I can hear as I'm placing the herbs into the jar. So I can hear it. And here's another, this is out there. There's a difference between listening and hearing. So in midwifery, it's like this a lot. Someone's talking and you can hear their words, but then when you really listen, probably the most important thing they're saying they didn't say, right? It's the same thing in Tai Chi. You do this a lot when you're doing partner work, like in pushing hands. You're always listening. It's not called hearing. It's very different. So I heard the sounds of my hands on the jar, but I didn't listen to the herbs or to the medicine. I know this sounds a little out there, but recently I had a really beautiful experience about listening to a plant. I was in California. I'm going to mention Tai Chi real quick. I was in California at this Tai Chi retreat, and there is this beautiful tree growing really close to the house. Beautiful madrone tree. It's like the most beautiful tree. It's massive. It's huge. It reminds you of like a blue whale, the biggest tree around. And so one day I sat and had lunch with the tree. And then in the lunch, I sat and leaned up against the tree and I asked the tree, so how are you? How are you? And I listened to the tree. I know this sounds silly. She said, I'm getting old and these are my kids. And then I looked up and there were like 1, 2, 3 madrone trees that were grown to their maturity. And then you look up and see her and a lot of it is kind of decaying and fading away and dying away. And then the next day, I was walking and I had a different perspective and I could see the tree from this way, and then I could see another madrone tree, and I was like, oh, hey, is that your kid too? I guarantee you, I know this sounds silly. The wind blew, the sun changed, and like all her little leaves went shh. So I took that as, yeah, that's my kid too. And so I know that sounds silly, but listening and hearing are different. So what other sense is there? Tasting. So let's taste what this tastes like. Heaven should have a cup, but we didn't give her a cup. Or I can give her this cup and she can drink out of I can drink out of the jar. She'll have to taste it later. So tasting. See, this tastes really rich and almost, I don't want to say thick, but a little bit thick. This almost tastes like, because there's a lot of nettle. Nettle is salty. And nettle has a salt taste, flavor, and so this would be really great, honestly. Rather than thinking of it as a tea, I would add a little bit of miso and a little bit of maybe tofu in this, and I would have this be the stock for my soup. This would be a nourishing, almost light soup. It's not that thick, but it would be, if you put miso in it and the tofu in it, it would be. Or you can taste it again. And now I can taste the peppermint, and it kind of, like, the peppermint's real uplifting. And you could just drink it as is because it's great, gorgeous this way. Or you could add a little honey and then it would become really light and sweet. Nourishing herbal infusions, there's a lot more to say. I'm going to leave it at this. But I do want to say on our blog, I have a blog about nourishing herbal infusions, and it's all about how to turn nourishing herbal infusions into popsicles for labor, and how to turn them into popsicles for kids in the summertime when they need. You want to hide the nourishment, but they really are not going to drink a nettle tea. But if you hide it, make popsicles out of it. So there's a blog post about that, and also on our podcast, there's a whole podcast about nourishing herbal infusions. So I would like you to check that out. And so we're about to cycle back around and wrap things up, because this, once again, I just want to remind you that this series, this episode probably should have been the first one to introduce you to what we're going to. Instead, it's the one that wraps it up and say where we've been. Just remember, deep fatigue, the reason I'm talking about it so much is because we're at the equinox, right? We're about to go into winter. This is the time to collect, store, harvest, fortify, amplify, build yourself up so that when you go into the deep of winter, you're not depleted and fatigued and depressed and sad, right? And so this is the time. So that's why I'm talking about this so much right now. I also want to remind you that next week we're going to reveal something really important. And I want to remind you that our Lady in Waiting, we're giving our Lady in Waiting away. And there's probably something else I want to remind you about. But instead, let's go ahead and do our meditation. And so, organoleptic. We're taking something plain, like a cup of tea, and we're turning it into something sacred. So it could be plain like this. And this is perfectly fine. Do this if you want to. Get a tea tin, get the tea bag out, pour some water in it, put it in your cup, go drive to wherever you're going, hustle to work, do work, drink a couple cups of tea. Didn't even think about it. Or turn it into a ceremony. What I mean by that is place your intent there. Put your intent there. Your intent is, I'm going to see the tea, smell the tea, taste the tea, touch the tea, feel the tea, right? I'm going to have that awareness, and so you just kind of program that in so it becomes automatic. The other thing is, the other part of this tea, not only did I just engage all of my 5 senses and my whole body, but I'm also working with the 4 elements. So I'm working with the earth, the cup is the earth, the tea is the earth, the water is the water, obviously, the steam and the smell, the aroma is air, and fire is the heat. And so just this very simple act of heating the water and pouring it over the herbs, I just connected with the 4 elements. And if I can connect with the 4 elements, then it's easily, I just connected with the 4 cycles of winter, spring, summer, and fall. And then it just ripples out from there. And then you just connected to all the other women that are connected to that, right? And so that's what I mean by we're a force of nature. We're always connected, whether we have our intent to be, or our awareness to be, our perspective. But as soon as you engage your perspective and engage your intent, then everything just becomes deeper and more profound. And the healing and the benefits become deeper and more profound. And the influence that you have on other people becomes deeper and more profound. Right? So let's take our few moments to connect with our breath and connect with our body and with our meditation. So you can either be like me, standing, or you can be seated, or you can be lying down. But I'm going to go ahead and close my eyes. Allow yourself to look inward and to settle into your center. Breathing slowly and deeply, calm and relaxed. Take 3 long, slow, deep breaths. Bring your awareness to your feet. Feel the sensations of your feet, of your right foot and left foot. Feel both feet simultaneously. Bringing awareness to the sensations of your ankles and lower legs, both left and right. And of your knees, tops of your thighs and backs of your thighs, your entire leg, both left and right. Feel both legs simultaneously. Feel your glutes. Bring awareness to the sensations of your pelvic floor. female parts. Breathing in and out, bringing awareness to all the organs and spaces of your pelvis. Just notice and observe. If you're pregnant, connect with your baby. Smile. If you're not pregnant, bring your attention and awareness into your womb, into your womb space, observing and connecting, appreciating, and smiling at your ovaries and your uterus. Breathing in and out. Bringing your awareness up your back and up your chest. Feel your lungs expand. Becoming aware of your shoulders, both right and left, and your arms, following the sensation down to your elbows, down to your wrist, to your palms, to your fingers, feeling both arms simultaneously, all the sensation of your arms. Continuing up your body, observing the front of your neck, your throat, and the back of your neck, especially where your shoulders connect to your neck and where your neck connects to the back of your head. Bring your awareness to your jaw, your lips, your mouth, your teeth, your tongue. To your nostrils, feeling the air pass in and out. Your right nostril and your left nostril, both simultaneously. Becoming aware of your eye, your eyeballs, your eyelids, your eyebrows, your forehead, and your ears, your earlobes, and your inner ear, both right and left, feeling both ears simultaneously. Becoming aware of the top of your head where your hair grows. Feel the sensations of the front of your body. Now feel the sensations of the back of your body. Feel the sensations of the right side of your body. Now the sensations of the left side of your body. Feel the sensations of the lower half of your body. Now the upper half of your body. Feel the sensations of the outside of your body. And now the inside body. Now feel your entire body, in and out, up and down, left and right, front and back, as one complete, whole being. Breathing in and out. Bring your attention now and your mind to your heart. You know you're in your heart space when you can feel your heartbeat. You can place a hand on your heart if you like, and one on your belly. This is the time to appreciate your body for all that she does for you. All those breaths and heartbeats and cellular actions that we're not even aware of. All that digestion, all those thoughts and processes. Now ask your body, ask yourself, that wise self, your stronger, wiser self, the part of you that knows. If there is a shift in your perspective, what needs to shift? Or ask yourself, when I start to make nourishing herbs, what's the first one I should take? And which one's the first one I should learn from and drink? Let these answers just come to you quickly and effortlessly. The first one that comes is the right one. Ask yourself, where are you in your cycles? Where are you in your fertility life cycle? Where are you in your greater cycles of life? In order to move gracefully through the cycles of life, what way does your body need to be nourished? Trusting and receiving, having a heart full of gratitude with the answers. They don't have to be extravagant, but usually the simplest is the most profound. Starting to bring yourself back, breathing, starting to bring your awareness back into the room or into the space that you're in. Slowly open your eyes and engage your senses. So see something in the space. Touch something and feel it. Smell something. What do you hear? What can you taste? So once all your senses are engaged and you're fully back in the room and fully present, if you would like, I would love to hear what your wise, strong woman inside had to say in terms of any of those questions. Please go ahead and comment. Let's see, I feel like we all know that we're at the equinox, so we're about to be in the fall. So that's where we are in our cycles. I feel like, and we also know that the moon is about in that same place. It's not quite equal yet, but it's about to be where it's half, it's waxing. It's almost at the equidistant place. And then in my personal life, I almost feel like I'm right there too. I'm at my personal life. I feel like I was like younger and was martial artist and a traveler, and then I became a midwife and a mother, and I'm still a mother, but now I'm passing through that, and so I feel like I'm starting to be like at the end of summer before fall in my personal life cycle of where I feel like I am in my life and what my body asked me to do so I could feel really nourished and move gracefully through life is to continue to be authentic, drink tea, take deep breaths, have a gratitude practice, and give thanks and be willing to connect with myself and to really connect with everyone else. And so I'm going to leave you with that, except for I'm going to remind you a couple things. Join us next week with our big reveal. Super exciting. I really am excited about it. I've been working hard on it, and I really hope you love it as much as I do. Remember, if you want a tea, you can have it. It's yours. What else? That's probably it. So may you always walk in beauty. May you always drink deep and have a heart full of gratitude. I'll see you next week.